Tarara boom de, there are no books today, they had to go away. Tarara boom, 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 boom. Good morning. Welcome to Books at the Top of the Stairs. My name's Lorene, and I'm glad to be coming to you from the upstairs of our house. In the background, you can probably hear a vacuum cleaner. It's a shop vac. Steve's using an industrial vacuum cleaner to try and clean up the furniture in his office. All the furniture of the main floor has been put into his office, and if he wants to reclaim it, he's got a lot of vacuuming to do. So the floors are still not finished. The hallway that's sort of directly below me is not done because they haven't done the kitchen. And we've got a snow day, so they stopped on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they're off. Monday, we thought, okay, we'll be done, but no, there is nobody moving in the city of Halifax right now. And as Steve says, you can tell it's severe when the curling has been canceled. He usually curls on in the evening, but the morning and afternoon games have been canceled. So I thought it made more sense to speak to you guys while there's vacuuming noise as opposed to hammering and sawing. So yeah, that's that story. The ankle still kaputski, not walking very much, and although I can sort of, yeah, whatever, you don't need to know that part of the story. I have been reading now that I'm more or less have a routine, and I've got a couple of interesting books to bring to you. Okay, this is the read aloud that Steve and I have been doing through most of December and January. Chill Tidings, Dark Tales of the Christmas Season, edited by Tanya, Kirk. It comes from the British Library, which I have other books that I've talked to you about that are from the British Library. And so I think that that's a very interesting place to go for books if you're looking for something that you wouldn't get, say, from Amazon. These might be on Amazon, but they've curated them as to what they are publishing themselves. And so we've got some pretty good Gothic books and books from sort of modern classics, and just quite a nice range of books there. Now you do have to, they did have some kind of web piracy thing going on. I'm sure it's cleared up. Just double check before you make any kind of orders. But these are short stories that have been written by a whole bunch of known authors. I don't know how well known they are anymore. They would have been in their day. So we've got Charlotte Riddell, who's quite an interesting writer from her period, late 1800s. I think she was a contemporary of Jane Austen, but around there. Louisa Balden's Algernon Blackwood, who's also well known for his stories. Lovecraft, Elizabeth Bowen, and Andrew Caldecott, as well as Jerome K. Jerome, if any of you have read Three Men in a Boat. This is kind of the same nonsensical, upside-down ghost story. It was quite amusing, the last one. And I didn't realize this, Steve pointed out to me afterwards, that it's a bit of a spoof on the Christmas Carol. So if any of you are big, Christmas Carol fans, this might be a short story that you'd like to look up for next Christmas, and as an alternative. Told After Supper, published as a novelette in 1891, and yeah, so it was a good little anecdote to Christmas Carol. All right, the other thing I'm just realizing you might hear is a little kind of like clink clink clink. So this light behind me has got a little dangly down pull thing. So if I bang into the table with my head, then it starts to go off. It's just a video of noise. Okay, the other one that I didn't read. Now this is a story, and I have, because of the chaos, I have lost the book jacket. A beautiful purple, A Magic Steeped in Poison. Now I bet that's reversed for you guys, but just in case it's not, there you go. It is written by, Judy I. Lin, L-I-N. It's a new release. I think it's Canadian because that's what I was looking for, a Canadian debut novel. This is a young adult novel. It was one of those moments in the store where the bookseller and I were not seeing eye to eye. We just could not seem to communicate. And I was trying to explain what I was after, a new release Canadian author, not new release, I'm sorry, debut novel, Canadian author, and preferably young adult. I just thought that would be kind of fun. They didn't have too much, and it was just taking her so long to sell me a book that by the time I had this in my hands, I thought, if this isn't the first thing off the top of her head, how good is it? And there are two things that I don't like about this particular book, so why did I buy it? It was just one of those polite Canadian moments where after ages and ages, she's finally brought me a book, and so, talked it up, and I'm thinking to myself, I can tell by the cover I'm not going to like this book. And it's true, because the main protagonist thinks that she has poisoned her mother through the tea ceremony. It's taking place in, I'm going to say China, but I'm not positive. Let's just say possibly Korea, anywhere where there is a tea ceremony. So therefore it could even be Japan, but I don't think so, because the setting for the little that I read was not very Japanese. So she thinks that she has poisoned her mother through the tea ceremony, and her sister is very, very sick. Mom has died. And so she's going to try and go to the capital to win the favor of the princess in order to get some reward from the princess, and she wants the doctors to be able to come and save her sister. So what have we got that I dislike? A motivation from guilt. She's going to carry this stupid story in her head all the way through. You and I both know that if she was doing the tea ceremony and someone had put poison into the tea, it's not her fault, okay? It's not your fault, all right? End of problem, end of reason for book. Secondly, she's going to go and get the princess to save her younger sister from this side effects of the poisoning. Well, what can the princess do? By the time you get back and you've had all your adventures and this, that, and the other thing, sister's dead. Okay, short story. Did not even continue. Another book that I found equally frustrating, but I did finish, is Chatterton Square by E.H. Young. This is also from the British Library, but it is their sort of subsection of women writers that are women that have written sort of between 1900 and 1950, I would say, for the most part. A lot of them are around World War I and World War II stories. And what I really should do is a wrap-up of all of those. I think I bought 7. This one was, if you like character, and if you like a lot of description, and if you like really getting cerebral with your characters, this is a good book. There are 2 families living more or less side by side. They share a wall with a the way the houses work. There's sort of I don't know what that's called. It's like there's been a joining of the houses through an addition, and so one of the sons in one of the families likes to jump down on the roof when he knows the neighbor's home, because the jumping on the roof causes the books on the shelves to rattle, and so he's just like a 10-year-old little monkey just doing that kind of thing. Anyhow, the one family, the Blackett's dad, has decided that the Frasers are just trash. They're just white trash kind of thing. Now, this is taking place in England, pre-World War II. And Mr. Blackett has made his pronouncements, and they are very pronounced, on the basis of superficial observation entirely. He doesn't like that the lady of the house, Mrs. Fraser, who has a balcony, uses it. He just thinks it's unseemly for people to be on balconies. He doesn't like that she comes out to the front door and talks to the gentleman who sells vegetables, or any other vendor of that kind. That's the servant girl, and she should come out the back door. There's like all these rules, and he makes these decisions based on basically no information whatsoever. It's just whatever's in his head. And what's in his head most of the time is himself. So he sees the entire world as a reflection of supporting him in his excellence. He's got a wife, Mrs. Blackett, who I think on her wedding night made the awful discovery that she absolutely detests her husband. And so for the last 20 years, despite having given birth to 3 daughters, she still has not made any overt declaration of her distaste for this man. She's got this game going on in her head where every time he's a complete donkey, she is so clever with her words that she turns them back on him, and because he is so self-reflective, he does not hear this sort of reversal of tone or sarcasm or what have you. But she's been playing this game for 20 years because she's stuck with the bugger. And her eldest daughter is pretty much her husband. Both completely self-absorbed and self-referential. Her youngest daughter is just a, cutie little younger daughter. We don't really have much personality there. But the middle daughter, Rhoda, is more like her mom. And so those two have got a nice little bond. But next door over at the Frasers, there's 5 or 6 children, I think. And Mrs. Fraser's husband has taken off years ago. He's sort of what would you call an unrealized artist, in the sense that he's a very creative individual, but he hasn't any stick-to-itiveness. And so every time he tries something, it just kind of blows up in his face. But that's okay, because he's just on to the next idea. So somewhere along the line, he got tired of his family and has moved to Europe. And this is all taking place in the period of time before war actually broke out, where the two sides of the situation are still in negotiations for, whether war is actually going to be declared. So one of the things that Mr. what's his name again? What did I say? Blackett. He's convinced there isn't going to be a war, so he refuses to let newspapers come into the house, the radio to come into the house. So the Blacketts go over to the Frasers to get the news, and it's just more of an alive house over there at the Frasers, and there's a lot less pretensions. But what Mrs. Fraser has that also Mrs. Blackett has is a complete reluctance to say the obvious, that you don't, even though war is imminent, you don't actually talk about it. Even though the husband has disappeared, you don't talk about it. Even though someone else has come into her life that she thinks, maybe this would be a good thing for me to have, this person to have in my future. Both these women undermine themselves because of this sort of weird British thing about not actually speaking the truth. I don't they're all about truth, but they never actually speak it. It's like somehow you're supposed to know telepathically what is actually the truth. So this author kind of wriggles and wiggles and wingles and wongans and all over the place. She's in all the different heads of all the different characters, and you get to see their motivations and their fears, and not exactly my cup of tea. I like a good character and I like a good writer, but I don't get this. I'm too Dutch. Just say what you mean. Mean what you say and get on to the next chore. So, did I love it? No, I didn't love it. But would other people? I think so. I think there are quite a lot of other people who like that kind of introspective, omniscient narrator, psychological character book. There's a plot in here, but it's kind of secondary to the character development. All right, another plotless book. Green Grass, Running Water, Thomas King. Loved it. 5 out of 5 for me, all over again. I was reading it with Jolene's Bookworm Adventure Girls Reading Across Canada book club online. So there's about I think there's 5 or 6 of us now all across Canada reading, and we do it by Zoom. So go over to her place if you want to join in. Thomas King, I adore. I think I've read 90% of what he's written in terms of novels and poetry, but not his plays or essays, and I listened to his performance on Ideas Canada, which we have somewhere in the house. And actually that would make a pretty interesting, vacation book. Would it make a good plane book? It might be, the Ideas lectures. There's 5 lectures. Anyhow, I digress. This book doesn't have a ton of plot line to it either. We've got a family of, I don't really know their last names. There's Lionel and Nora and Eli, and then there's other, family in and out. And there's also the 4 Indians, and so it's Robin Caruso, Ishmael, Tonto, and I'm always forgetting the last one. Oh, each time I forget a different one. Anyhow, they are people who have been, First Nations people, who have been sent down to Florida, Fort Marin, at different points in history as part of the Indians that rebelled against the troops that were trying to resettle the reservations. So this is like ages ago. And so these people are 90 years old, 80 years old, 136 years old. It's like they're ageless. And they are currently in sort of a facility for those who are, I guess, a mental institution is what we would have called it ages ago. It doesn't really exist anymore, so I don't know what the equivalent would be. Anyhow, they've escaped because they've discovered that something's wrong in the world and it's time to go fix it. And the last time they escaped from this particular incarceration, the doctor has figured out that every time they have escaped, there's been an eruption, there's been a flood, there's been some kind of catastrophe, earthquake. So very nervous about these 4 being off and about, because what natural disaster is going to coincide with their absence. So he's very keen to find them. And he puts all the clues together, and he heads up to the reserve where Lionel and Nora and Eli and all the rest of the family are. Some of them are on the reserve and some of them are off the reserve. And each one of these individuals has, because I'm going to tell you, I do not think that the 4 Indians are human. I think they're gods or spirits. Anyhow, they've gone to fix the world. And so they're trying to fix Lionel's life and Nora's life and Eli's life. And they're not particularly good at solving things, but they're, their heart's in the right place. Now, part of what also happens whenever Thomas King writes a story is that he includes quite often the origin stories, first woman or falling woman or thought woman. And so this story repeats. It comes around more than 4 times, I think. And they each take, the 4 Indians each take times telling the story of this myth, of this creation myth. And so this is integrated, and it's something that, having read an awful lot of Thomas King, he has over time used a lot of his creation myths or early story myths as part of his storytelling in the other books. So as you see, across his canon of writing, you see these motifs coming back up. And in fact, this book, and I'm not sure if it's his first or second book. Anyways, for those of you who are in Canada might remember Dead Dog Cafe. So the Dead Dog Cafe features in here. And so it's a really good different kind of character story. Does anything really happen? Sort of everybody just keeps going forward in their daily life, and there are small crises along the way, but they're fairly minute. It's like a jacket might get lost or a car might get stolen, and it all gets woven together in some fashion. Doesn't necessarily make a basket or a nice rug. There's holes in the story, let's just say. I love it. I love that kind of storytelling. It isn't magic. It's more like spirit embedded. So you do get peculiar things happening, and there's not any real straightforward explanation for it. Western logic doesn't entirely fit. So you have to go into this with a little bit of glee. you know, a little bit of willingness to just slide along with the story. But he's just such a great author. Totally, totally love him. All right, this one does have a fairly interesting plot line. This is a Newbery Medal winner. I think you would say it kind of, as far as I'm trying to figure out what would be the age range, I think that younger readers would enjoy this, but I really enjoyed it as an adult. I didn't have to put my little kid's head on to read this, and we've got a very interesting kind of mystery. There's a dead person, or is there? There's an inheritance, or is there? There are about 16 people who could inherit this huge billionaires stuff, but are they? And like, what are the connections between these people, and are they really related? And so these are all the questions that you have as you go into it. A bizarre chain of events begins when 16 unlikely people gather for the reading of Samuel Weston's will. And though no one knows why the eccentric, game-loving millionaire has chosen a virtual stranger and a possible murderer to inherit his vast fortune, one thing's for sure. Sam Westing may be dead, but that won't stop him from playing one last game. So it's called the Westing game, and it's humorous. I really enjoyed the shenanigans that the different characters go on. There's a young girl, Turtle, who's sort of the character that intersects with everybody. So she's not necessarily the main character initially, but she connects, and she's one of the ones who's able to put a lot of the clues together. And so in order to win the inheritance, each person gets 4 or 5 clues, and they have to try and figure out who is the person amongst them who's going to be the inheritor. Also, who's the person who killed Sam Westing? But as I say, is he dead? So I really enjoyed it. It was a quick little read. It's only about 180 pages. And now I have not read anything else by this author, but I'm going to take a look. When did this win the, why don't they put that right up front for me? It was published in 1978. Yes, 1978. So probably would have won the Newbery. It was sort of 79, 80, depending. Okay, is that everything? I think that's everything as far as this book goes. Did I hold it up for you properly? There we go. Okay, so I think that's probably enough for today. I'm going to take my ice pack and go sit down and edit this, and hopefully have it up for you tomorrow. I hope all your reading dreams and adventures continue to come true, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye for now. Missy has not really been disturbed during any of the downstairs shenanigans, because for my birthday, I got a heating pad, and that's under her. She's enjoying my heating pad a lot.